Hi there, welcome to the Upcycled Design Lab. My name's Cindy and I craft using recycled and repurposed materials. If you're new here, I hope you'll stick around and check out some of my other upcycling tutorials. And if you like what you see, you can check the subscribe button to become a subscriber. Also, if you'd like to be notified when I upload new videos, be sure to check the bell icon as well. So if you've seen any of my recent videos, you know that I've been working on remaking my messy craft room, and it has sort of an Alice-in-Wonderland theme. So I'm about finished with most of my projects, but I did want to do a couple of decorations for my room, and so I have 5 little decorative Alice-in-Wonderland projects that I've been working on. If you missed my last video, the first 2 were in that video because the 5 projects were a little bit too long for just one video. So you can check the link in the corner right here. I think it's on this side. It might be on the other side. I always forget. I think it's right here. Anyway, you can click on that link and that'll take you to the first 2 projects where I decorated a giant key and also made some roses out of a deck of cards. But in today's video, I'm going to be doing the last 3 projects. I have sort of a crazy Alice-in-Wonderland cardboard curtain. I'm also going to be showing you my pocket watch magnet wall, and I did some silhouette framed art in an Alice-in-Wonderland theme. Alright, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this first project because I don't think maybe too many people want to make curtains out of cardboard, but I have a glass paned door on my craft room, and just in the case where I ever maybe wanted it to be more of a private door, I decided to make a curtain out of some cardboard panels. So I have this artwork that came, I think it was in sort of a coloring book. It's kind of oversized pictures from Alice in Wonderland. And to make my little panes, I'm just using some Mod Podge and a nice big brush. It helps to go a lot faster. And I'm gluing them to some pieces of cardboard. And then for the back piece, I have some more cardboard and some book paper, and I'm just using some torn up pieces to Mod Podge onto the back part of the little window pane covers. When they're cut to size, they're trimmed down. So these are the fronts. And then for the back, I have the book paper. So to do the assembly of the pieces, I actually have just some 1/2-inch black piping that I'm putting around the edges. And then I'm hooking the pieces together with some black grosgrain ribbon. And for the very top, I have these large jump rings or round wire rings so that I can hook the curtain onto the door. So just to show you what this looks like, here's the top panel. You can see I've got the rings hooked there with the ribbon, and then the ribbon is just sandwiched between the 2 pieces of the board, and you can see the piping around the edge of the pictures here. So I'm just hooking enough pieces of cardboard together to cover all of the window panes. Alright, so here's 1/2 of my curtain hanging on the door. I wasn't able to finish the other half because I ran out of piping. So you'll have to tune back in for my room tour to see the completed door curtain. But just in case you don't want to always have the curtain hanging in the door, if you wanted to leave the glass panes open, I made a spot to hang the curtain on my wall as well.
So in one of my earliest projects for this room, I decorated my closet door with some tin can lids, and if you missed that project, you can check it out in the link in the corner of this video. But I decided that I wanted to kind of decorate it with some fun little pocket watch tins, and they actually are, you know, good for some storage. So I kind of scrounged around and found all my metal tins and put some art on them with some Mod Podge, and then I just used little pull tabs for the backs. But I only had 4 tins, and I really wanted to make some more shapes. So I've done a previous video on these Dove containers that they have Dove cream in them, and I got them at the dollar store. So I've done a lot of different things with them. There's a whole video on all the 15 different ways to reuse this container. But I now have a 16th one because I wanted to make some more pocket watches. So just to demonstrate, the lid comes off very easily, or the label comes off very easily until you try to do it on video. But I'm just removing the labels, and then I'm scrounging up my empty containers. There we go. And I'm going to spray paint them with some silver to match the actual tins that I made. And then, like I said, I just used some E6000 glue to glue some pull tabs on for the pocket watch effect. So I'll be back when I have these spray painted with some silver, and then we'll put the artwork on. So here are my Dove containers with the silver spray paint. I just used some Krylon metallic silver. And like I said, I used some E6000 glue to glue the tabs on the back. These were from soup cans and dog food cans because they're a little bit bigger. For some of the smaller tins, I just used a pop pull tab. The other thing about the metal tins is that the lids just kind of pop on and off. For these Dove containers, they actually screw on, which is good because they'll stay on a little tighter. You can see I didn't bother spray painting the inside. But the thing I want to make sure of is that I get the clock face art placed on straight up and down so that it'll be at 12 o'clock when I take the lid on and put it back off. So I have all my little pieces of art here. I have Adobe Illustrator on my computer, so I can kind of resize art and things. Hopefully you have some system for resizing art. So I've made the art to the exact size that I need. And to glue them on, I'm actually going to be using some Fabri-Tac glue on the bottom, just because these are plastic. And then I'm going to put a coat of Mod Podge on the top to kind of protect the art, but I'm not sure that the Mod Podge will actually hold very well to hold it onto the plastic. So I'm going to start with the Fabri-Tac, and I'm going to use some parchment paper here. And if you saw my last video, you know I made some rose hearts out of a deck of cards, and this actually worked pretty well for putting the glue on the back of the art and smoothing it out. Let me get this glue glob off of here. All right. So I'm just going to lay down quite a bit of glue. You don't want tons, but you want enough to get to all the edges pretty well. And then I want it to be really nice and smooth, so I'm just going to use this little piece of card that I have to spread out my glue. This isn't glue you really want on your fingers. It does dry pretty quickly, which is nice. Alright, so I want to make sure that I get 12 o'clock facing the pull tab, and I want to make sure my lids are screwed on tight. And then I'm just going to press this down and make sure my edges are tightly secured. So I'll let that dry for a little bit, and then I'll go back over the top with a thin coat of the Mod Podge just to seal the art up. All right, so I have a nice flat soft brush, and like I said, I'm just going to put a quick coat of the Mod Podge on top of the art. I did use my printer to print off these pieces, and sometimes the ink can bleed a little bit, so you don't want to overwork this with the Mod Podge. You just want to put a quick light coat on top so that you're not really getting that ink wet and smearing it around. So that's it, just a quick coat like that, and then we'll let all of it dry. All right, so as I mentioned, I'm going to be putting these on my metal door. So the metal tins obviously are going to work very simply. I'm just going to use a strong magnet, and that obviously already sticks, and then it'll just go up on the metal wall. For the plastic tins, they're a little more problematic. So you could glue a magnet onto the back, but I've found that they kind of tend to pop off. They don't always stay very well. So my plan is to use some extra strong or super strong magnets. You can find them in a couple of different sizes. I have these smaller ones and I have some bigger ones. You just want to make sure you've got some super strong magnets. And instead of gluing one to the back, I'm going to just put one on the inside. And then you can see it sticks to the outside also. And I'll use that to hold it to the wall. But you could glue them on if you preferred. But I like to be able to reuse my magnets, so this way they're not permanently glued on. And if I want to use them for something else, I can. All right, so I thought I was finished with my little pocket watches, but then I decided at the last minute to add a little bit of chain and a tag to them so that I could label them with what I was storing inside. So to do that, I just had some black cardstock that I've used my label punch to punch some different sizes. So you can get them in all different kinds. This one punches several different sizes all at once, but you can get any punch you want for that. Then I have a little punch to punch holes in the tag. You could certainly use a nail or something like that too. Once I have the labels punched out, I'm putting a little edging around with my metallic dimensional paint, and then I'm just going to use some chain and my needle nose pliers and some jump rings to attach the little tags to my pocket watches. Alright, so here's a look at the pocket watches on my door, and I did have a change of heart on the tags. I decided just to add some silly little words from Alice-in-Wonderland, so I'll still have to guess what's in my tins, but they seem to fit a little bit better with the quotes on there. And if you're interested in more information on how I put the tin can lids on the door, you can click on the link in the video right now. So for this project, I'm going to be making another silhouette framed quote from Alice-in-Wonderland. So this one I've already done. I just bought a couple of thrift store frames, and I'm going to go ahead and paint this one in another one of my Craftroom colors. And then I'll be adding another piece of art and another quote from Alice-in-Wonderland. So the first thing I need to do is to disassemble everything and carefully remove the glass so that I can go ahead and paint this. I think I'm going to try to save all of the hardware to use when I rehang the piece. And I'll probably use some primer paint to put on the frame. And originally I was thinking I was going to use my orange accent color, but I seem to not have very much at all. So I think I'm going to switch to my turquoise color, and then I'll be sure to have enough paint. So like I said, my first step is just to take this apart, clean it up, and get a couple of coats of paint on it. So I'm just using a 5-in-1, which is nice and flat and slides right under these little tabs, and pushing them out of the way so I can get the back off here. And once I've done that, you never quite know what you're going to find in these. The last thing I did was all one solid piece. So this is paper art with a couple of pieces of cardboard in there. I'll probably save this piece. I don't know, I guess it won't work. All right, so I'm just going to use this piece to add my art to. So I'm going to set it aside for now. And I'm going to carefully get the glass out of here. And then I'll add a coat of primer paint. Alright, so while my frame is drying, I'm going to go ahead and start working on my artwork. So I just have the back piece of cardboard that came out of my frame. And I'm going to use a little bit of Mod Podge and some book paper to Mod Podge my background of my art. So I just need to tear a few pieces. Got a nice soft brush here to use with the Mod Podge. And we'll go ahead and cover the surface with the book paper. Doesn't take very much. And I'm not going to wrap around the edges, I'm just going to go right to the corners, so I'm going to find some corner pieces to use. That way I only have one side of this that has to dry. Some of this will be behind the frame, the very edge, so I don't have to worry about making it perfect that right there. I'm just going to line this up on my corner and continue overlapping my pieces until I have the board covered. Alright, so my primer coat's dry, so I'm going to go ahead and add a coat of my top color, and if I need to, I will go back and add a second coat. While everything's drying, we're going to go ahead and work on our artwork, making it into a transfer. So to do that, I have a light tracer table. If you don't have a little tracing table or light table, you can certainly use a window or something. So I just want to work on the back piece of my art, and I'm just going to trace the outline onto my art and then paint it. So I only need to make the edges of this into a transfer. So to do that, I have my solid graphite pencil. I honestly don't know how hard or soft it is. It seems pretty soft as far as the graphite goes. So I'm just going to make a tracing kind of around the edges. I want to make sure I'm getting lots of graphite onto the back of my paper here. And I just want to make sure that I'm covering all the edges of the art. This is a little bit messy. It will transfer a little bit of graphite to in spots maybe where you don't want it, but it's not very noticeable on the book paper that I'm using. At least I didn't have a problem with it on the last piece of art. Alright, just to do a test, I'm going to get a regular pencil and do the butterfly. So here's just a regular number 2 pencil that we're going to give this a try to. I think it'll work just as well, it's just takes a little longer to get the surface covered. So let me turn this off. As you can see, it doesn't really look like anything, but you want to make sure you have all of your edges covered. So the Mod Podge is dry now, and I'm going to go ahead and do my transfer of the artwork onto this board here. So I've got all my tracing here, you can see again. And I'm going to use a white gel pen. I don't know, hopefully that'll show up on the paper here. And you just want something that's hard to actually press the graphite that's on the other side onto this piece. So first I'm going to clip the art on where I want it. I think I'm going to trim the bottom off here a little bit, because I'm going to put my quote at the top. Trim this side too. You want to just clip one side because you're going to kind of go back and forth as you're tracing to make sure that you can see your lines. At least that's what I did on the first piece. So I'm going to clip it on this edge. My quote's going to be up at the top. And then because it's clipped over here, I'm going to kind of try to start on this side and work this way. And what I did on the last one is I just made sure that I kind of went over the area, pressing pretty hard, just kind of go over it a couple times. It doesn't matter if you're writing on the top here, you just want to be able to see where you've already traced. And then you can check it and make sure your line is coming out. Hopefully you can see that. If you need to, you can go back over it with another pencil line, and I may do that in some spots. You can use a pen or a pencil. Just want to be kind of patient and work without shifting your art too much. So I'm going to go ahead and trace this whole thing out, and then we'll be back to do the painting. Before I go, I'm going to try to do this butterfly because that's where I used the other pencil. So we'll see if it works at all. I think the softer the lead, the more graphite you're going to get on the paper, and that will make it easier to trace. It's also going to make it a little messier probably, so you're going to get a little bit of graphite where you don't want it. Let's see. Yeah, you can see it. I can see it, hopefully. Anyway, you want to probably go back and darken up the lines. So I'm just going to keep working on this until I have the whole thing traced out onto my board. Alright, so hopefully you can see this. It's kind of hard with the gloss on there, but I think if I'm moving around, you can kind of see where the design is. Anyway, I can see it, which is the important thing I think at this point. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use a nice soft pointed brush and a little black paint, and I'm going to paint in my silhouette. I like to keep my art close by so that I can be sure to kind of follow along if I get lost in the art. Sometimes if you're looking at one spot, you kind of need to check back to your art to make sure you're painting the right spots. So I'm just going to start at the top, outlining my little caterpillar and fill it in as I go. You want to make sure you have the right brush for this. This is a good pointed tip brush, but it's also nice for bigger filling in spots. I don't know if that means anything. It's a #1 liner paintbrush. That might help you if you were looking for something similar. Anyway, this is just sort of, you know, harkens back to your coloring days. I like painting things by hand. So I'll work on this and then I'll be back to do the lettering. So I'm ready to add the lettering to my art here. So I want to draw a light pencil line just so I can make sure I'm keeping my wording straight. And that's why I like these clear rulers. You can kind of tell where they are. I don't want to get it too close to my art. And I want to make sure it's squared off. So I'm just going to drop it down just a tiny bit more. And I'm just going to draw a really light pencil line. Alright, so I have my line drawn, and I always like to practice a few times writing. And this is about the right size for my wording, but I'm finding here that I think my Y is going to be a little bit of a problem. This might also be. So I think what I'm going to do is cut this apart and space out the words a little bit more to see where I can put them. Alright, so I think this is the spacing that I'm going to use here. So I want to kind of slide these out of my way, but I want to keep them in sort of on top of where I want to write so that I can sort of follow along. So I'm just going to slide this straight up out of my way. Alright, so they're out of my way, and I'm going to go back and just do my writing with the Sharpie here. Hopefully that's in the frame. So I'm just going to follow along and try to do it right underneath where I was before. So now I'll just go back over to make it a little thicker and finish it up.
Alright, so my spacing isn't perfect, but here is the finished wording, and now I just need to go back and carefully erase my pencil line.
So here's my finished framed art.
And here's a peek at one of my favorite projects. I decorated my wall with a tree and the Cheshire Cat made out of cardboard. So if you're interested in finding out more information about that project, you can click on the link in the corner right now. So that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please do give it a thumbs up, and I hope to see you soon.